select your ride and let's drive into Godot. The inspiration for this will be from the game Need for Speed Hot Pursuit 2, and their menu looks something like this, and what we will create will look something like this. So we're gonna start by making the menu, and I'm gonna make this a 3D scene, and I'm gonna hit the plus button, and I'm gonna search for a sub viewport container. I'm gonna create that, and then we can hit the anchor preset and we can fill work this. And then as a child of the sub viewport container, we're gonna add a sub viewport, and then as a child of the sub viewport, we will add a camera 3D. And now if we go into the 2D view again, we will see the camera's perspective instead of the 2D view. Then we want to look at some cars, so I'm gonna add a marker 3D, and this will just hold the cars. And then I have some models. This is available on my GitHub if you want the models. They are made by Kenny. So I'm gonna search for vehicle. So I'm gonna drag them into my scene to see which ones I like. So now I have all of them in my scene, and I don't need this many, so I'm gonna delete a couple of them. I think that's good. And then we can select all of these cars and we can drag them onto the marker 3D. Then we can go into the transform and we can reset the position. Now they will all be on the marker 3D's position, so we can drag it out here in front of the camera. And if we go into the camera and hit preview, we can see them. I'm gonna select the marker 3D and position it a little bit better. I think this is pretty good. And when I look in the 2D view, it obviously doesn't fill the entire screen, so we're gonna fix that too. And to do that, we just select the sub viewport container and let's hit stretch. And then we don't want the background to be visible, so we can select the sub viewport and then we enable transparent BG, and that makes the background transparent. And then we're also gonna add an animation player to the scene. So I'm gonna hit the plus button and search for animation player. And we're gonna hit the animation button and new. And I'm gonna call this animation spin. I'm gonna make the animation length 30 seconds. Then I'm gonna select the marker 3D. I'm gonna make the Y rotation 0 and I'm gonna hit the key and create. Then I'm gonna hold control and zoom out a little bit. Go to the last frame. And then I'm gonna make the Y rotation 360. That should be a full spin. Then we can hit the key again. I'm also gonna enable autoplay on load. This means that the animation will play as soon as it loads, so we don't have to play it through the script. And then we also want it to loop, so that's just the looping arrows here, and we make them blue. And if we play it, we can see a slow spin of the cars. I'm gonna pause that animation, and now we can add another node. This will be a control node, and this will hold all the 2D UI. So I'm gonna hit the anchor preset, I'm gonna full rect it, and then I'm gonna add another control node as a child of it, because I want one for the buttons and one for the other UI. And I'm also gonna full rect this. And then I'm gonna select the control node, and I'm gonna add a HBox container. And then on the HBox container, I'm gonna hit the anchor preset and I'm gonna center it. And then I'm gonna add my reference so I can trace it. So I'm gonna hit the plus button and I'm gonna add a texture rect. I'm gonna hit the anchor preset on that and make it full rect. I'm gonna drag in my reference and ignore size. And I'm gonna make it a little bit transparent so we can only trace it. I think that's good. Now back to the HBox container. I'm gonna drag it up so it's the correct size of the buttons. I think that's pretty good for the size, so 120. And then we're gonna add a button as a child of that. And then I'm gonna go to the layout, and for the custom minimum size, I'm gonna set it to 160 on the X. And then as a child of the button, I'm gonna add a texture rect, and I'm gonna set this to the full rect, and that will fill out the button. And this will hold the textures for the cars. So I'm gonna drag in the Audi, and on the expand mode, I'm gonna hit ignore size. And I also want to change the stretch mode to keep aspect centered. Otherwise it will stretch a little bit weirdly. And then we're gonna go into the theme override and styles. And I don't like to have a focus, so I'm gonna make this a style box empty. What this does is it adds a white line around the thing you select, so you know what you selected, but I don't like it. And then the way this will work is that the buttons on the sides will be darker or disabled, and that's this theme. So I'm gonna set the button to disabled so we can see the difference. And we're gonna make a disabled theme. So this will be a new stylebox flat. And I'm gonna open it up. And on the background color, I'm gonna give it this color. Then I'm gonna go to the border width and I'm gonna give it 5 on all the borders. And then I'm gonna open up the border and give the border this color. And on the reference, the bottom right is cut off. And to do that, we select the corner radius, and on the bottom right, I'm gonna give it 30. And you can probably see that it's not a straight cut, it's more of a smooth cut. And to fix that, we go to the corner detail, just reduce it to 1, and that will make it sharp. And that's the theme for the disabled version. I'm now gonna go up and turn it back on, so it's not disabled. And I'm gonna make a new normal theme. And this will be a stylebox flat, and I'm gonna turn it to this color. Same with the corner details to 1, border width 5 for all, and on the border color I'm gonna make it this white, and corner radius 30. And that's it for the normal theme. I'm gonna copy the normal theme and I'm gonna paste it on the pressed theme and the hover theme, and then we can add the button around this. So I'm gonna go out of the hbox container and I'm gonna add a button. I'm gonna center it and then I'm gonna drag it out around the button. So try to make it even on the edges. It doesn't have to be exact. And this button will always be disabled. It's just gonna play an animation that blinks. So I'm gonna disable it. And then I'm gonna make a disable theme and I'm gonna make this flat. And the background color will be this color. It's a semi-transparent blue. Then corner detail to 1 and border width. I'll make these pretty high, like 50 on all of them. And then for the border, I'm gonna give it this dark blue color. And on the corner radius, 30 for this one as well. And you can see right now that it's displayed in front of the button. So I'm just gonna drag it above the hbox container and that will put it behind. And as a child of this button, I'm gonna add a animation player and make a new animation and new. And I'm gonna call it blink. And I'm gonna change the time to 0.5. And I'm gonna zoom in a little bit. And we want to make the theme blink for that button. So I'm gonna select the button and we're gonna key the border color on frame 0 and hit create. Then I'm gonna go to 0.25 and we're gonna change the border color to something grayish. And then I'm gonna key it again. I'm gonna hit autoplay and load. And I'm also gonna make it loop. And if we play the animation right now, it will start blinking. And that's what we want. I'm gonna pause the animation. And now I think we can add other buttons. So I'm gonna duplicate the button inside of the hbox container 2 times to start off. And then you can see that they're pretty close to each other. So I'm gonna select the hbox container and I'm gonna go down to the theme overrides and constants. And I'm gonna give them a separation of 25. That will put them a little bit apart. And then we can add the arrows for the sides. And I'm gonna go out of the hbox container, select the control node, and let's add a button. I'm gonna put it in the right position. So the button will cover this area. So if you click on the right button here, or the arrow, it will change to that one. So I will just make a arrow symbol on my keyboard. And then I'm gonna change the alignment. So I'm gonna search for align, and that's on text behavior. I'm gonna turn it to left, and I'm gonna try to put it in the perfect position. I think that size is pretty good. And then we're gonna go into the theme overrides, and on constants, I'm gonna give it an outline size of 5, and then go to the colors, and we will give it an outline color, so that's the font outline color. I'm gonna drag this out a little bit so we can actually read what's going on. And then I'm gonna give it a font color of this blue, and I'm also gonna change the focus color to this blue. And then we can go down to theme size, and I'm just gonna make this 65, and let's go into the styles, and on the focus, as usual, make it a style box empty. And we actually want to make this empty on all of them, so the hover and the pressed and the normal, and that will just make it transparent. And now I'm pretty happy with how this one is looking. So we're gonna rename this button to left button, and we can duplicate it, and this other one will be called right button. And I'm gonna drag the right button all the way over here. Yeah, that's pretty good. And then I'm gonna go to the alignment again, and this one will be aligned to the right. And then we need a new symbol for the right, so that's this one. So now we have the buttons that we will need for changing the course. I'm also gonna add another button, and this one will be in the bottom center here, and it will just say race. We can do it without caps. And I'm gonna go down to the theme overrides, and let's change the size first off, so 50. And let's make the styles empty for the important ones, so the hover, normal, and pressed. We can drag it up a little bit like that. Then I'm gonna go to the colors, and I'm gonna give it a hover color, and I'm gonna also give it a pressed color. We can rename this button to race button, and I'm gonna rename the control to UI control, and I'm gonna add another control node, and I'm gonna fill work this, and this one I will call background and control. On this one I will instance a line 2D, and we will start making some lines. So I just select the green plus here to add a point, and then I'm gonna click in the bottom here and just follow the template, something like that. And then we can increase the width of this until it's outside of the view. I think I like that. And then I'm gonna give it a dark blue color, and we can actually just duplicate this line 2D, and I'm gonna rotate it and move it over to this side. Doesn't need to be perfect. Right now I'm not perfectly following the reference, but I think some imperfection is nice. So let's add another line, and this one will be down here in the bottom. And let's move it down a little bit, and I'm also gonna scale it. I'm gonna give it this color, and for the background control, we're actually gonna move it above the UI control, so it's not blocking anything. And then we can also add a color rect, and I'm gonna drag it above the lines, so it's behind them. I'm gonna fill rect it, and we can make it something darker. This dark works pretty well. You can see that the cars are darker now as well, and we don't want that. And we can drag in the sub viewport container in between the UI controls and the background control, and that will make it so it doesn't block any UI, but it's in front of the background. So that's how we want it. And then I also added a world environment and a directional light. Otherwise it will be black when we run the scene because it doesn't have a sun. I'm gonna select the UI control node, and I'm gonna attach a script to it, and I'm fine with it being called UI control. So let's create that, and let's connect some signals from the buttons. I'm gonna select the left button and go to the node tab and connect the pressed signal and hit connect. I'm gonna do the same for the right button and for the race button. We're gonna remove the process function, and on the left button function we're gonna make a variable, and this will be the last car, and it will be equal to the hbox container. Let's see if I can find it. I'm gonna drag in the hbox container into the script, and we're gonna get the child, and that's gonna be the -1. The way the index work for getting children and most things with index in Godot is that index 0 is the first one, and then index 1 is the second one. And if you do -1, it will take the last one. And as you can see, we have 3 buttons here that are children of the hbox container. So the first one here is the index 0, then index 1 and index 2, and index -1 is the last one, so that would be button 3. And then we want to drag in the hbox container again, and we're gonna do move child. So move child, and we can move the last car to the index position of 0. And then we can do something similar on the right button. So that would be first car, and first car is index 0, and we want to move it to the -1. And let's see, last car. Oh yeah, we need to update the variable here as well. So I'm gonna give them a new image. So I'm gonna rename this button to Audi. Then we're gonna select the second button. Let's give it the Honda and rename it Honda. And then this one will be a Nissan. And then before I add the other buttons, I'm just gonna show with these. So I'm gonna run the scene, and if I hit the button here, they loop. Now I can add the other buttons. So we're gonna duplicate the Nissan 3 more times and drag in the other symbols. You don't have to go into the texture tab and drag them. You can just drag it on top of the texture rates and it automatically updates. I didn't know about that before. So one important thing here now is that this will be case sensitive, the way I'm handling selecting the cars. And that would be the exact names, so Audi and Honda and so on. So I'm gonna give them the correct names, and I have 6 of them here now, but you can add as many as you want. So if I run the scene now, it will still loop, but I don't want this many to be visible at a time. So I'm gonna make a function that makes it so only 3 are visible at a time. So make a new function here. So I'm gonna call this show first 3. And for that, we can just run a for loop. So for I in the range, so in the range of the hbox container, and then we do child count. So this will run through the children, and then we can get the hbox container again, and we do get child and I, and dot visible equals I if it's less than 3. And then we drag in the hbox container again, and we do dot get child and I, and dot disabled equals I if it's not equal to 1. Oh, I forgot to put in here, but it's supposed to be in range. And to explain this, it runs a loop through the children for as many as it has, and then it gets the children and make them visible, the first 3 of them. So as long as it's less than 3, they will be visible, but you can change this. So maybe you want 6 of them to be visible, you would change this. And then the way the disable works is that it gets the middle one, as we explained earlier. Index 1 would be the middle one if we have 3. If we have 4, obviously no middle one, but if we have 5, that would be 0, 1, 2, so it would be index 2 if we have 5 of them. I also want some text above this to say what I have selected. So I'm gonna add a new button, and this will just say selected car, and I'm gonna make it disabled. I don't wanna be able to click it. Then we go to the theme overrides and colors, and I'm gonna give it a disabled font color, and I'm also gonna give it a disabled theme. So I'm gonna go into the disabled and make a style box flat. I'm gonna give it this dark blue color, and I'm gonna make a border width of 5 on the top and 5 on the bottom, and I'm gonna give the border color something white like that. And then I'm gonna go to the anchor mode, and I'm gonna make this H center wide. We can just drag it up here, and the exact positions and size are here. So let's rename this one to selected car button and make sure it's disabled. Yeah, we can go back into the script, and outside of the for loop, we want to get the selected car button, and we're gonna change the text of it to be equal to the hbox container. And then you remember, as we did before, we got the index 1, so that would be dot get child, and we want to get the child 1, and then we do dot name. That will change the text of this to the name of the car we select, and that's one of the reasons why we need to give them exact names. And then we need to call this function whenever we press the right or the left button. So we just call that function below here, and we can also call it in the ready function. And then we can go into the raise button pressed, and for that we want to change level. So I'm gonna get the 3 and dot change scene to file, and I'm gonna change to my level scene. If I open up the level scene, it looks something like this. It will just be to show off the selecting the car and it changing for the gameplay. So it will change to this scene. If I run the project one more time to show that it only shows 3 now, it does. And they still loop, all of them, but only 3 are visible at a time. And you can see that the text is also changing, so we know what type of car we're selecting. This, for example, is a Tesla. All the cars are still visible, so we don't want that to happen. So to fix that, we can change that in the show first 3. We can do that below here. So we just do another for loop. So for I in marker 3D, I guess we can rename the marker 3D to garage marker 3D. I want to get a unique name of this one. So I'm going to right click on the garage and access as unique name, drag it into the script. So for I in garage dot get children, so we want to make the I dot visible equal the parentheses I dot name, and we want to check the name of the garage marker 3D children to the hbox containers children, so double equal, and then we can drag in the hbox container. We can do dot get child, and we want to check it against the middle one, so that's 1, and then we want to check against the name. So if they have the same name, it will change the vehicle. So not only do you have to change the name of the buttons here to be the exact same, we also have to change the name of the vehicles here. So this one can be Audi. I'm gonna drag this down so I can see all the names at once. And I'm just gonna copy the names and paste them onto the meshes. It's important that they have the same names, otherwise it won't work. So now they have the exact same names. So if I run the game now, it shows only the car that I'm selecting and it loops around. And let's quickly end it with showing it actually changing the car. So I'm gonna make a new 3D scene and I'm gonna add a camera. I'm gonna rename this node 3D to player. I'm gonna change the camera's positions and rotations a little bit, do something like that. I'm gonna save the scene as player, and the way this will work is that you can have multiple cars and you will just instance them into your player and you can drive that car. So I'm gonna make a new scene and this will be a other node and it will be a vehicle. Let's go back to the car select menu and I'm gonna copy the Audi and paste it in here. So now we have it in here. And then we need some wheels, so we're gonna add a wheel 3D, go into the top view and rotate it. You want it to be in the right direction. And I'm just gonna go into the side view and the front wheels should be steering. And then I'm just gonna scale it down a little bit and I'm gonna move it here. I think that's pretty good. And then I'm gonna duplicate it and you wanna make sure they are the same distance apart from the center of the car. So I think that's the, it's the x-axis, so I'm just gonna make this negative, and this one will also be steering. Then we can select these two wheels, duplicate them and move them to the back, and these two will be used for traction. So I'm gonna save this as, I can save it as Audi, and then it has a warning, and that's because it needs a collision shape, so collision shape. And then on the shape I'm gonna make the box and drag these gizmos here to fit the car, and I think that's perfect. I'm gonna duplicate this Audi scene and I'm gonna call it Honda. I'm gonna open up the Honda scene and I'm gonna change the mesh. So I'm gonna copy the Honda car and remove the Audi car and paste it Honda. And all I have to do is change the collision shape. And these cars won't do anything on their own, so we have to add a script. So I'm gonna attach a script and this script will be called cars. And I'm just gonna paste this script in here. It's a simple car movement. And I'm gonna add the car script onto the Audi as well. And you can just keep on duplicating these cars and add as many as you want. So the Honda one, I can duplicate it. And maybe I want this to be the Tesla. And open up Tesla, copy the Tesla mesh and paste it in here and remove. So now I have the Tesla in this scene. So let's go back to the player and attach a script to the player. And then we're also gonna make a new script. So I'm just gonna hit file and new script. And this will be a global script. I'm gonna call it global as well. Why not? Hit create, go to project and project settings. And then we go into the globals tab and we add a new script. And I'm gonna select the global.gg and hit add. Then we can close this. And inside of the global script, we're gonna make a new variable. And I'm just gonna call this var selected and underscore car. And this will be equal to an empty string. So that's just two quotation marks. And then we can go back to the car select scene. And that's the UI control. And the same place where we changed the name of the selected car, we can just make the global dot selected car. And since this is a string, we do dot str. And the string of text we want to make it equal to is the hbox container and the child one and its name. And we can also print this so we know what we're doing. So print, and let's print the global selected car. Then we go into the player and in the ready function, we can make a new variable. We can just call this car, and this won't be equal to anything for now. So we can make it equal to null. And then we want to match the global dot selected car. And since all of these things are case sensitive, it needs to be the exact name. So Audi, and then I will make the car equal the load, and then I would want to get the Audi scene, so that's the audi.tcn. And if I selected the Honda, get the exact name Honda, then we want to make the car equal the load and of the Honda scene. And then we also added the Tesla and make the car equal load. This matches them and makes them equal to whichever one matches. And then after this we can make an if statement, so we can get the car. And if we have a car, we can make a new variable and we can call this instance underscore car. And this is equal to car.instantiate. Then we add the child and the car. And then if I go into the player scene, if we were to add the car right now, it will be a child of the player, but we wanted it to be a child of the camera 3D. So we're gonna get the camera 3D and we're gonna do reparent, and then we want to reparent the car to the camera 3D. Last thing we have to do is put the player in the level. Just gonna instance the player, and the player is right here now in my level. And if I run the game now, and you can see in the debug window the car we select. Obviously you have to set up the rest. I only set up 3 of them, but the Tesla one we set up, so we can do this one. And we trace. I made a small typo. We're not supposed to add the car, we're supposed to add the instance of the car. And we're also supposed to reparent the instance of the car. Because the car is only equal to a path, it's not the instance itself. So if we run it again and select the Tesla and hit race, we get the car and we can drive it around. My car physics aren't perfect and it's pretty easy to flip around. If I run it again and select another car we set up, the Honda one, for example, we did set up. So if I run it, we can run around with the Honda without it flipping. And then lastly, we also set up the Audi. So let's try that one out. And now we have the Audi. And I should also mention that this video was requested by a viewer. And you can also request videos on Ko-Fi. Thanks for watching, and special thanks to my members. For source code, custom videos or coaching, check out my Ko-Fi. And I'll see you in the next one.